Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis, and this week I'm joined by Geneva Zoltek, who you may have noticed hosting a few of our episodes here recently. And Geneva, I just wanted to tell you, you're doing an incredible job.
Thanks, Andy. It's been a lot of fun. I've definitely enjoyed it. Excited to be here again.
Speaking of exciting, we have got a very exciting episode for you today because we are here in Yellowstone National Park in a little area known as the Zone of Death.
Oh my God, John, what are you doing?
You're part of this now.
Okay, well, Montana, it's had a long history of digging and mining. Some Great Falls students are learning about that and learning about how the mining history in Montana is still impacting the environment. MTN's Brianna Juneau reports.
All right, grab the feet.
Central Catholic High School students are getting a first-hand look at how the acidic drainage from that waterfall behind me is affecting areas like the Belt Creek. It's all about getting out of the classroom and getting a hands-on learning experience.
So we're taking a field trip with our advanced biology class to look at Belt Creek and some of the interesting things that are happening, especially from the mine drainage.
Mrs. Warren has been doing this field day for around 10 years, bringing experts from Fish, Wildlife and Parks, the Forest Service, and DEQ, to name a few.
When they are out here, they get to see what everybody does and they get hands-on activities. So the professionals are having them do the tests, which is way more exciting than what I'm doing in the classroom.
Plants. I see some purple flowers.
It's definitely fun to learn, come out and learn new things and see what other people do in their fields of work. It's fun to experience their jobs for a day.
Montana has its fair share of history that still affects us today. The goal of the field trip is to get students exposed to what's going on in the world around them. And in Belt, past mining has made the creek unhealthy and acidic.
We are so lucky to have a gorgeous area to live in, but it's only gorgeous because we take care of the land and we monitor what's going on. The leftover mine areas have water that seeps into them and it collects the sulfuric acid. So, you know, we may not drink the water out of Belt Creek, but it's affecting the underground aquifers as well, and just making it safe for everybody and everything that lives out here.
So I think it's pretty interesting to be here. It's different to get out of the classroom and actually do hands-on things with different types of stations.
Just, you know, they're just learning so much being out here, and they get to see that what real life experiences are like.
What can be done to better the environment? Well, that's what these students are here to learn. In Belt, Brianna Juneau, MTN News.
In the stubble fields of the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, you'll find Grant Osby.
They're orphaned, they're in the way, they're not in production, and there's nothing getting done.
He's farmed this land for 30 years, and this well is one of the many orphaned wells in the area.
The time it takes, we can damn near, by the time we go around some of these, we can seed another acre or spray another acre. So it's hugely inefficient.
A hazard that led to a phone call from Curtis Shuck of the Well Done Foundation.
If it's worth doing, it's worth measuring, right? That's kind of the way that we look at it.
The Well Done Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit national campaign. Founded in 2019, it's plugged orphaned wells across 10 or more states. In Montana, the foundation is plugging its 24th orphaned well.
When they become an orphan, they just fall onto the state. They become a ward of the state. And an orphan well, by definition, is one that doesn't have anyone who's any longer financially responsible. So they default to the state and to us, the taxpayer.
The plugging of the wells are privately funded through donor support and organizational fundraisers, hiring local labor and others to promote local economies, like Tyler Downhour, a Derrickan from Bakersfield, California, working to provide a better life for his kids.
Well, because I think about my kids. And as far as the guys, like, I see them more than my family, so I pretty much consider them family.
And the mission of the foundation is seen through its employees.
The longer these wells sit open like this, the more damage they can cause to the ground, the water, the air. So what we do here is a little bit different. It's like we're actually kind of giving back.
The orphaned wells are adopted by the Well Done Foundation, and it assumes full responsibility as they decommission. The foundation's goal isn't to oust oil and gas companies, but to do right by the damage left behind.
For me, it's about doing the right thing and leaving it better than the way that we found it. We're not a policy shop. We're not, we're about boots on the ground, making a difference one well at a time.
General hunting season begins on Saturday, and that means thousands of us will be taking to the field in search of game. FWP wardens want each of us to remember that and follow some simple rules. Rule number 1, safe gun handling. Every moment you have it with you.
All those things are real important. It's going to keep you safe, other hunters you're hunting with, other hunters you may not know are out in the field, people around the area, and then also animals you don't intend to shoot. So every once in a while we do run into situations where someone's shooting at maybe a cow elk that they have the right licenses for, but they don't see the bull behind it, or vice versa. And so just taking that extra moment to slow down, making sure you're having good weapon safety and being careful.
Captain Pankratz also says knowing and understanding the regulations for where you are hunting, essential.
Montana's a big state, so there's diverse hunting laws. You may be able to shoot a mule deer buck in this area, but not in the next drainage over. So paying attention to regulations, land ownership, all those things are really key.
In Montana, you can hunt some form of game animal 11 months out of the year. Poaching an animal is a crime. And if Pankratz and his team can't be there to catch a poacher, he's hoping an ethical hunter will help him make that happen.
You know, when you think about it, wildlife is owned by the people. It's not owned by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. It's not owned by the government. It's owned by every citizen that lives in this great state of Montana. And so when you're calling and reporting a poaching or a wildlife crime, you're protecting something that you own that should be real important to you, whether you're a hunter or not.
It's this simple. 1-800-TIP-MONT. That's the number to call if you see something wrong. Be safe, good luck, and always remember what a privilege it is you have here in Montana. Gearing up for the big day, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Coming up after the break, winter tourism is almost getting started here in Montana as snow flies to the higher elevation. But first, here's a trivia question before we get to that story. What is Montana's smallest state park? That answer coming up after the break.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. So, do you know what is the smallest state park in Montana? Nestled in the mountains by Boulder, Elkhorn holds the distinction of the smallest state park in the Treasure State. Geneva was actually up there recently and met with some residents who want people to know they're no ghost town.
Elkhorn is an old mining town just up the road from Boulder, and it's a place that's really been shaped by the elements. Buildings made of wood and stone, all here because of the rich deposits of silver and gold in the surrounding mountains.
If you get on the internet and search just Elkhorn, Montana, yeah, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of it.
At an elevation of 7,000 feet sits Montana's smallest state park.
We want people to know that it is an old mining camp. It's not, a ghost town where you can wander in and out. It's private ground. It's a lot of people that still own the property from their ancestors.
The park sits in the middle of a 140-year-old town, a town that story is still being written.
And if you go over that hill, there was what we called the sourdough mine, which was also more gold than silver. But everything in this area was all silver.
The discovery of precious metals grew Elkhorn to a bustling community in the late 19th century.
My great-grandfather actually came out of Canada and came west because of the mining, and he came to Elkhorn in about 1888. His primary business was a livery barn that took care of horses, shoeing.
Bruce Bell is a member of the Elkhorn Landowner Protective Association, a small group with deep ties to the area.
We're using some of those old pictures and how it looked all through the years, all the way back to the 1886, I think, is the oldest picture we have.
With the help of a grant and the detective work of Bell and others, 20 informational signs are getting installed along Main Street.
They work 6 days a week. They work 10-hour days.
And I think that really lends a huge value to the visitor. They're, not just to come and see these two beautiful buildings that are obviously well intact and well photographed, but also just to add to that overall message of what the town was.
The park itself is less than an acre. Fraternity and Jillian Hall are two buildings which people are allowed to step foot in.
But it is an active, mining town still, and has just a tremendous amount of history to it.
Because the people that lived in this town at 7,000 feet in the winter and still mine, they were pretty darn tough. And I think that's something we probably don't admit as much. That's why you want to come here. For those people that haven't been to a place like this, it's good for them to come and see what it was like.
In Elkhorn, Geneva Zoltek, MTN News.
Here in Red Lodge, like most towns in the area, it's a rainy and gloomy day. But take a trip up the mountain and you better bring some warmer clothes because there's over 14 inches of fresh powder up here and it's still coming down.
Every October, we tend to get this nice, big wet snow dump.
It's a sign of the seasons in Red Lodge. Every year, like clockwork, the town sees its first coating of white, and this year was no different. Jack Moore works at the mountain and moved here specifically to do what he loves.
It's a great ski town. The people here are fantastic. The scene is awesome. The mountain's fantastic.
And on Thursday, the drive from the town of Red Lodge up to the mountain was a chance to experience fall and winter within 10 minutes.
Recreating is open to the public up there. It is very much so. Ski it and recreate at your own risk and travel up to the mountain right now. It's pretty slick going up Ski Run Road. So we're not recommending travel up there right now.
But that wasn't enough to keep some winter enthusiasts away. While Red Lodge Mountain won't open until late November, the first snow of the season already has many dreaming of the fun to come.
First snow of the year, our equipment's ready, but we're struggling to keep up, and we advise not going to the mountain today. Tomorrow would be a different story.
Jeff Schmidt is the GM of Red Lodge Mountain, and he said many are determined to trek up the mountain to ski down in fresh powder.
In the true backcountry, I know first snow, people get excited, they want to get out, but extreme caution is advised.
Before we know it, this rainy October landscape in town will be transformed into a winter wonderland of its own. And Moore said the town can't wait.
It's really coming down up there. It's been coming down since last night. Some inch-an-hour snow last night throughout the night. And no snow in town for now, but we're getting pumped up for ski season for sure.
In Red Lodge, Phil Van Pelt, MTN News.
Coming up after the break, it's hunting season, and we have some tips to make sure that meat doesn't spoil. And Tanner Saul breaks down why not all animals feel full after eating.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. We're in the heart of hunting season, which means a lot of us are going out to try to fill our freezers here in the next couple of months. MTN's Rachel Fortunato spoke with a meat processor and has a few tips for making sure that meat doesn't spoil.
We're in the heart of hunting season. The general season for deer and elk starts next week. I spoke with the processor about the best way to get your game from the field to them. While plenty of hunters process their own meat, there are plenty that take their animals to butchers, like Tizer Meats. Tizer Meats has been open since 1994 and has processed it all, including bear and bison. Owner Matthew Elbakken offered some tips to help your next hunting trip. First, if you are able, Elbakken suggests getting your game from field to processor in 4 to 6 hours. If not,
and get it as cool as quickly as possible.
He also warns about filling the cavity with ice to cool the animal.
Taking ice and filling the cavity of the animal with ice to cool it off. I've actually seen a moose and an elk, big bull elk, that's spoiled with ice in the cavity. The animal's skin or hide is on the outside. Now you've put ice on the inside and you've left nowhere for the heat to go, so it traps it in there.
After cooling the animal, Elbakken also suggests doing something to make sure the animal doesn't dry out. He recommends using an old bed sheet or cooking oil.
If you want to keep it damp and put it over to shroud that works well. But take a rag after you skin that and wipe it all down with that cooking oil, and it makes just a layer on there to where the air won't penetrate.
Unfortunately, Tizer is short-staffed this year and won't be able to take all requests. Make sure to call any meat processor to see if they are available to take wild game beforehand. And remember, Montana requires all hunters to stop at game check stations after they bag their animal. In Helena, Rachel Fortunato, MTN News.
Whether it's a big meal with your friends or a Thanksgiving dinner, we all anticipate that moment when we lean back in our chairs and exclaim, well, I'm stuffed. It's a shared experience among people, knowing when we've had enough to eat. For wildlife, much like our extravagant Thanksgiving dinners, there are times when indulgence becomes a survival necessity. Overeating can be a boon in certain situations. Consider the annual spectacle known as Fat Bear Week, where bears bulk up before the winter. Birds embark on long migrations after gorging themselves, and male African lions can devour up to 90 pounds of prey in one go. Their overindulgence is a response to the unpredictable intervals between meals, which could stretch for days or even a week. Herbivores, too, stick to a consistent eating pattern to meet their nutritional needs. Wild animals, it turns out, have evolved mechanisms similar to our own to regulate their food intake and determine when they're full. One of these mechanisms is the vagus nerve, often dubbed the brain in your stomach. This nerve houses sensory neurons that constantly monitor signals from the stomach and intestines, transmitting this vital information to the brain. It's all involuntary, so it's beyond conscious control, and it's what gives us that feeling of fullness when our stomachs stretch. But it doesn't end there. Animals possess nutrient sensing mechanisms that help them figure out what nutrients they require from their diet. Whether it's carbohydrates, amino acids, fatty acids, minerals, or of course water. These mechanisms enable them to maintain a balanced diet. Animals also have bitter receptors on their tongues and inside their mouths. These receptors detect and react to bitter compounds in their food, serving as a defense against potentially harmful or toxic substances in their diet. Hormones also play a pivotal role in regulating appetite. Ghrelin, known as the hunger hormone, signals to the brain that it's time to eat, while leptin signals fullness. In some cases, external factors come into play. Hot temperatures or stressful city environments can cause animals to adjust their eating habits. Social factors can also influence when they stop eating. For instance, wolves may stop to ensure every pack member gets a share of the prey. So the next time you're savoring a feast, remember that our wild counterparts share in the age-old dance of dining and discerning when to push away from the table. Scripps News, Tanner Saul.
Well, each year the town of Chester comes together as part of the annual Highline Harvest Festival. And one of those highlights is a business called Prairie Meats. And after just 1 year in business, they have made a name for themselves with plenty in store in the future. During last month's festivities, nearly 100 in attendance came to support the meat facility, which has become well known in the Chester community. That celebration came with the steak competition.
So the steak competition, it was a collection of the best steaks that went through Prairie Meats this year, 2023.
Last year, Prairie Meats celebrated their official opening in the town of Lothair, just 10 miles outside of Chester. Clark, alongside his family, worked 15 hard months on their facility.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see it start out from start to finish, because he had this idea a few years ago, and now it's actually an operating business, and they built the shop, and people are really responding to it well, and it's good to see people in the community supporting it. I mean, everyone's just cool to see stuff happening in the area instead of stuff shutting down. I mean, we need more stuff like this happening in ag around here in small communities.
It's been great. We've never had a moment where we were slow, it's been fast-paced. It's been great.
And with the high demand in the area and the challenge of bringing animals to other facilities, Prairie Meats is aiming to change all that.
We're working on obtaining state inspection. We actually had our final walkthrough on Monday, and we'll hopefully get granted our marks of inspection on the 12th, and then our first scheduled state kill on the 19th.
Working with farmers and ranchers in supporting Montana's agriculture. In Chester, Cade Mentor, MTN News.
In Butte, a group of hobby beekeepers are working with county officials to update an outdated ordinance that will allow beekeepers to have hives in their backyards.
We ended up discovering that we had a local ordinance that had become outdated. It had been passed in 1976, and it completely prohibited all beekeeping in Butte Silverbow.
Jennifer says the Butte Beekeeping Club that she co-founded when she became a beekeeper about 3 years ago has been working with the local Animal Control Services Department since the beginning of 2023 to update the ordinance.
We've actually been looking at ordinances all across Montana, pulling the best practices from each of those ordinances and crafting our own local ordinance, which will open up hobby beekeeping within certain limitations that work well within our community.
Limitations include lot size and number of hives in relation to the lot size. And hobby beekeeping will not be permitted on property adjacent to neighbors who have documented allergies.
I'll just stand here and watch them come and go, come and go.
This might be a stupid question, but are they pets?
Oh, are bees pets? Yes. I have 20,000 bee babies, and I absolutely look at them as my pets.
According to the Montana Department of Agriculture, there are about 650 registered hobby beekeepers in the state of Montana, and the practice has practical, social, and educational values. So while Jennifer sees her bees as pets, they also work for her, giving a boost to her garden.
Unfortunately, they can sting you once in a while, though, and they become sort of an unpleasant pet at that stage. I absolutely do think of them as my pets.
In Butte, Megan Thompson, MTN News.
Should we say anything?
What do you mean? As far as the world is concerned, Andy Curtis went to Grand Rapids, Michigan. After 9 years with us, the king of the creative stand-up is going back to the Minton State. Andy started MTN Outdoors due to his passion for getting out under the big sky, and we hope to continue his legacy. We'll miss you, buddy, and wish you nothing but the best. And that's going to just about wrap things up for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors.
Thanks so much for joining us, you guys. Remember, you can always send us your outdoors pictures and videos to our website.
That's news@ktvh.com.
We'll email it to us, I guess.
I'm John Riley with Geneva Zoltek.
And we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.